Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Trinidad Bhojpuri Words and Phrase. I'm Karen Das. Joining me in this episode, Dr. Visham Bhimull of Caribbean Hindustani and Vinay Harrichan of the Cutlass magazine. Let's get started with our Kaise Bole Hindustani Mein segment. Kaise Bole, how do you say Hindustani Mein in Hindustani? Now, you ever go somewhere, you see something, you hear people talking, or you eat something, and you ask yourself, I wonder if there's a Bhojpuri word for this. I wonder if there was something for this in Hindustani. I wonder what Aji would have said in the old days. Well, that's Kaise Bole. So, Kaise Bole, a wake or all-night vigil, Hindustani mein. Now, we know a wake when someone dies, there's a gathering at the home of the bereaved, be it before the service or after the service. So how do you say a wake or all-night vigil in Hindustani? We had comments like jago or jagran. Some said all they ever knew was wake. That's all they ever heard growing up, that their parents or others were going to a wake. And others confessed, well, I don't think we even have a word for a wake or all-night vigil. So if jago is to wake up and jagawe is to wake up somebody, Kaise Bole, a wake or all-night vigil Hindustani mein?
The recurring answer that I saw on a lot of people's comments was jagran. And so jagran is a way of saying all-night wake or a vigil. And the reason why this whole, this word came up as a topic to test is because I have noticed more and more with mandirs abroad and in Trinidad, the use of the word jagran being on, mandir posters for all-night chanting for Hanuman Jayanti, all-night services for Naratam or Navratri, and also for Mahashivratri, because people know that that's a holiday that, you make your offerings and it extends well into the night. So that use of jagran, I've noticed, started popping up way more on mandir flyers and being used by pundits. And so looking into the etymology of that, jagran comes from the Sanskrit word jagar, which means awake or a state of alertness. So referring to exactly what Karen mentioned, a lot of people were commenting and saying that jago or jage means to wake up, a command meaning to wake up. Jagawe means to awaken something. And then we often see that jagaran or jagawe is used to refer to an awakening or reawakening. And some people also mentioned other things in my comments. They mentioned that jagarata or jagaran or jagarana, and they said that those are all additional ways of saying it. However, I haven't come across those used too much in a Caribbean context. I do, however, know that jaga or jagarana is a North Indian ritual that is still very common in North India, where they will venerate a deity well into the night with puja, bhajan, singing, dancing, and it's something that happens very commonly over there. But again, just to confirm, I haven't come across jaga or jagarana as commonly used as jagran in the Caribbean. And there were some interesting comments. Some people said rat jaga, which would just mean to, stay awake all night. People know that rat means night. And then a lot of people were mentioning, as Karen mentioned, that jagawe, jage has to do with waking up and awakening somebody.
Now, if I wanted to say, I'm awake in Hindustani, Kaise Bole, I'm awake Hindustani mein?
So essentially, just like we did for the word Manawi is to celebrate, we just used the root and created Manai. So in the same way, we could use the word Jagawe and add the E, and you'll get a Jagai, Ego Jagai, meaning awake. I guess we reached the point where the Caribbean Hindustani has started utilizing the grammar I developed now to now apply the patterns used in nouns and verbs to other nouns and verbs in the language to recreate what might have been said. But the word jagaido, it hasn't come up in conversations I had with older people in Trinidad Bhojpuri, and I have still contemplating if to ask Dr. Mohan if it is she would have heard of it. I did not hear any in her recordings from the 1970s, as well as Gumbers as well. It's not that a word didn't exist. I guess they probably didn't utilize that as part of a data collection tool in general questions. So if I have to assume, I would say ajagai. In standard Hindi is jagran, which is a vigil. But the word jagran, I've never heard it used in Trinidad Bhojpuri.
That's a good one. So now we can actually use that in conversation. Let's move on to PAAP-PUNIYA. Now you've probably heard PAAP-PUNIYA, and if you with your Bollywood films from the 70s, you'd know PAAP-PUNIYA with Visham and Shashi Kapoor. And there's a TV series, I believe, with PAAP-PUNIYA, which features the voice of the late Jagjit Singh. So PAAP-PUNIYA comments included sin and virtue, bad and good, bad deeds versus good deeds.
Sometimes from the pulpit, he'd be talking about sin. He'd look straight at me.
So, PAAP-PUNIYA.
Yes, so bad deeds, good deeds. It seems very clear these are obviously, virtual opposites. So PAAP, just try to remember that PAAP has a negative association, and then Punya, and you might know some older ladies with the name Punya, that has all the positive associations. So PAAP could be sin, Punya is blessing. PAAP could be negativity, Punya is positivity. PAAP could be badness, bad deeds, whereas Punya is goodness, good deeds, morality, virtue. So they're complete opposites, and that could kind of be our similar equivalent to blessing and sin. Then there would be Punya and PAAP.
Moving on to our midweek phrase or expression, GARAM-PUNYA. GARAM-PUNYA. Well, given the weather that we've been experiencing lately, this seemed to be quite fitting, GARAM-PUNYA, but that's just one contextual usage. Now, garam, I figured so many of you were able to connect garam from garam masala and pukela from pukni or puke, which we've done before. So put them together, garam-pukela.
Yes, so garam pukela means blowing hot. And I did realize, as Karen mentioned, some people knew garam from garam masala. We know that garam means hot because garam masala is hot spices. And then people knew that pukela came from the verb puke, meaning to blow, because, they used to say puke with the pukni being the pipe that you blow in when you're fanning the flames for a chulha. So when you put it together, it literally means garam pukela. And I actually have a kind of funny kahani with this. And it's, talking to the older ladies in my family, they would reference that there was some older Indian women that would always joke and say garam pukela whenever they were, in menopause or having a hot flash or on their period or anything. So it's kind of like a funny little saying of garam pukela, blowing hot. And some people did, think that it was a reference to, just hot weather and stuff like that. But I thought it's very funny that, there's the context of a woman having a hot flash and using garam pukela to try and, express that feeling. Now, there is a song that doesn't use exactly garam pukela, but it does use the word garam, and it's from the 1988 film Kasam, sung by Asha Bhosle, and the words go garam garam pani, naram ye jawani, which I thought was a good way to use the garam, meaning hot, but also bring back naram from a couple weeks past, which means soft or delicate. So garam garam pani, naram ye javani means hot water, delicate youth, which is a woman kind of talking about herself in reference to her young, kind of soft lover. And so that's the song that uses the word garam there.
Garam pukela. All right, let's move on to SAMSAAN, another Trinidad Bhojpuri word, and lots of interaction for this one. SAMSAAN, a burial ground, cremation site, a graveyard site, the graveyard, crematorium, final resting place. Now, Nalini Mohan, who lives in Suriname, I love that she shares really nice examples. She also shares with us how the words are used and said in Suriname. And she delivers a really nice breakdown as well. So, ekdam samsaan dekhat raha hua. It looked like a graveyard there. Ghat also came up, and Sudhir Sharma, who lives in Fiji, he also has some very informative pieces. I want to say hello to Kamal Dev Rai as well, who lives in India, and so many others as well, texting and messaging in from other parts of the diaspora. And you can see from Sudhir's post, he introduced us to some new words. Well, for those of us who are not familiar with these words anyway. And you can see his breakdown there. So, SAMSAAN.
Yes, so it seems like in terms of what the older people would say in a Caribbean context, in a Caribbean Hindustani context, SAMSAAN was the most popular word. And I do think it's important to understand why some people were commenting and saying cremation site, and then other people were commenting and saying cemetery. And that very most likely has to do with the fact that, as a lot of people know, in long time days, Hindu people did not have the legal right to cremation in Trinidad, and so therefore they had to bury their dead. So it's very curious to see that the contextual meaning of SAMSAAN has changed over time, with some people saying cremation, some people saying cemetery, because of that aspect of our history where cremation was not allowed in the beginning, and we still have those ramifications in the language to today. Now, some people were commenting on my post and giving the more Hindi Sanskrit answer, which is smashana. So smashana is the more Hindi Sanskrit answer, but SAMSAAN, that's our Bhojpuri word. And it's important to know that, there's a distinction there. I did also have some people mentioning Kaprisan, because they saw that the hint we were saying about, the resting place of a body. And so they were answering Kaprisan. Kaprisan is a more Hindi word for cemetery. I haven't heard it too much in a Caribbean Hindustani context.
Again, just like the word we did previously about wake, in Peggy's interviews, what was used was burial ground. Your people said, speaking Trinidad Bhojpuri, but they learned you use the loan word burial ground to describe a cemetery. We also have to consider the context of what existed prior. I mean, burials were more in vogue in the coming out of indentureship as well as post the period. It only started to become, at least cremation started to become popular in the 1980s. But prior to that, it was more burial. In standard Hindi, Shamshan, which means either a burial ground or a cemetery or a cremation site. And then it is not that Hindus have to cremate, because in the Veda it's prescribed. This is as per reference Dr. Keith McNeil, that the Veda actually prescribes 4 or 5 different ways. Burial is one, cremation is another. Then the Zoroastrian, which is part of Hinduism, putting the body up in a tower and letting the vultures eat them, embalming, and then getting rid of it in the ocean, are different ways as prescribed by Veda, right? And Manusmriti. It's just that during the 1950s, the mode of disposing of the dead, which is cremation, had been a part of the rebranding of Hinduism. So now it's seen as we should do that. But according to the text, it doesn't say we should. It's one's prescribed way of disposing of the body. But and then Shamshan, which is Hindi, becomes Samsaan in Trinidad Bhojpuri, and Peggy did use it in her Trinidad Bhojpuri morphological study, her thesis, to describe what is our burial ground. And then talking to people from Suriname, as well as older people in my interviews, they also had it referenced as a cremation site. Ghat is really a pathway down or an area that gives you convenience to the river to burn, to wash clothes, to do religious offerings, and so on. Ghat.
Well, we usually wrap up the week with a food-related word and 2 words. Kasera ke roti. Now, we've done roti many times before, and we've done kasera before. So we thought, what about putting them together? Kasera ke roti, which many of you have had based on your comments. Kasera ke roti, and points for everybody because you all got it right. Cassava roti.
And this is one of the words where, if you Google what is the Hindi word for cassava, the word cassava will just come up with a K. So, points to everybody for getting this one correctly, because we know it's a difficult one to Google or be able to look up online. But yes, kasera ki roti just means cassava roti. And that was the resounding answer from everybody in the comment section. There didn't seem to be too much confusion about that. And a lot of people just mentioned, their love for kasera ki roti, especially when they're fasting and it being a good meal for that. So yes, kasera ki roti, cassava roti.
Well, kasera, growing up as a word for cassava. Not sure about the Hindi word for it. I'm not sure if it related to the Hindi word or if it's the same, but I know it's in Trinidad Bhojpuri as kasera. And then you add ke roti is only roti of kasera. Ke roti means the roti of cassava or cassava roti.
And there you have it, another weekly recap of Trinidad Bhojpuri words and phrase. This is a KDC production in collaboration with Vinay Harrichan of the Cutlass magazine and Dr. Visham Bhimull of Caribbean Hindustani. Now you can keep up with us here in these videos. You like, you share, you subscribe, you continue to interact with us, give us your feedback. You can message us directly, make your suggestions as well. And we look forward to sharing more words with you in the future. And we look forward to another weekly recap coming up soon.